So the next speaker will be Professor Leoni Bonamin from Sao Paulo, from Brazil, from Paulista University. And she will speak about physical properties of high dilutions and the corresponding biological action.
Okay. 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 Thanks. So, good morning to everybody. I'm Leoni Bonamin from Brazil. I would like to say thanks to Dr. Pollack for this invitation, and also to Igor to make us in contact. It's my first time here, and I hope it will be the first one of many participations, because it's an amazing event. So I would like to talk something about my work with my colleagues. Here we have international collaboration between me. What? It's not working. Oh, here. Between me, my colleague Ivana Sufredini from UNIP 2, the same university, and Stephen Cartwright from Oxford, UK. We are talking about the physical properties of high dilutions and the corresponding biological action. Let's start by some background about our previous work. Here. This is the work of a student of mine, Fabiana Santana. It's her PhD thesis. She studied the relation between Leishmania amazonensis, it's a protozoan, and macrophages under the effect of homeopathic medicine Antimonium crudum in different potencies or different dilutions. And here we can see the morphological parameters we have observed after this treatment. And here in A, we can see a macrophage infected with Leishmania and stained with acridine orange in such a way that we can see the lysosomes here in orange separated from the Leishmania units. This is expected in the control, because Leishmania has the ability to avoid the contact with the lysosome when they are inside the phagocyte to protect themselves and be alive into the cell, into the host cell, and reproduce themselves. This is the way how they do their life cycle. But when we treated these cells, these infected cells, with Antimonium crudum 30CH, we couldn't see active lysosomes with acid content. The acid content is responsible for the orange color using this technique. And the macrophages were strange. It's like they were turned off after this treatment. And after the treatment with Antimonium crudum 200CH, we could see some orange lysosomes into the cytoplasm, but in a more scattered way alongside the whole cytoplasm of the cell. So we had here 3 different morphological patterns according to the treatment. And Antimonium crudum 30CH and 200CH worked in different ways, as if they were different medicines. It was very interesting. But we evaluated also the function of these macrophages, measuring different kinds of cytokines, chemokines, and growth factors. And the main results we could observe here was the production of two kinds of chemokines, CCL4 and CCL2. These chemokines are responsible to do recruitment of monocytes in lymphocytes to the infection site. And this is very important to the Leishmania pathogenesis, because they have to infect these cells to keep their life cycle. And after the treatment with antimonium crudum, 30 CH and 200 CH, you could see a reduction in the production of CCL4, and with 30 CH, a reduction in the production of CCL2, even in infected cells. And this result was important to explain what we had observed before in vivo, treating mice with antimonium crudum, infected mice with antimonium crudum, and the inflammatory process here was very, very, very small in relation to the control. And of course, there was a clinical improvement, a visual clinical improvement in these animals. This is important because Leishmania is able to make macrophages as Trojan horses. That's we call in biology the function of Trojan horses. That means that macrophages, when they are infected, they can migrate to other parts of the body and spread the infection. And with this treatment, we cut this ability of Leishmania of changing macrophages physiology. So, after this results, they are already published, we began another kind of experiment trying to understand what happened inside these medicines and regarding to physical chemical properties, and which kind of relation these physical chemical properties can be associated to our biological effects. And here we can see a work performed by another student, Renata, and she evaluated by scanning electronic microscopy different kinds of microparticles inside the medicines, inside different preparations. Here is water or vehicle, but not only water, it's succussed water, dynamized water, agitated water. So we called it vehicle. Antimonium crudum 6CH, 30 and 200 CH. We can see different patterns of microparticles. Here, very small particles, half-moon shaped and scattered alongside the stub of the microscope. Here the same thing, but the particles were a little bit longer than the former. In 30CH treated, 30CH medicine, we could see another kind of pattern with small and round agglomerates of these particles alongside the stub. And in 200CH, we could see very huge agglomerations of many, many, many particles, and around it, very few and small particles could be seen. So they are gathered all together in this potency, in this dilution. Another student, Hannah, she's here, she decided to study the conductivity of the different kinds of, different potencies of antimonium crudum using this device. This is a microamperimeter linked to two poles, positive and negative, and two very thin electrodes. And these electrodes were positioned in parallel and put inside the tube containing the medicine. This is a very sensitive method to measure the electric flow through the liquid. And we could see here that water, non-succussed and succussed water presented two values statistically significant between them, but we established a kind of band in between both controls, and we compared the other potencies in relation to this capacity to do more or less electric flow inside the liquids. And here we can see at 7 CH in a low potency, the results were absolutely inside this band, but in 24 and 30 CH, there was an increase in this electric flow, and in 150 and 200 CH, we could see a reduction of this electric flow with some variations in the other potencies. This is important because here we could see biological effect. Here we could see biological effect before, but here in low potencies we couldn't see biological effect. And there is a first correlation between both parameters. And after, we decided to try to reproduce the Cartwright's method, Stephen Cartwright's method. I think he was here last year explaining the methods he created. In brief, this method allows verify if the remedies were able to affect the dipole moment of solvatochromic dyes. And we used the three solvatochromic dyes, ET33, BDN, and methylene violet. And these solvatochromic dyes were used as probes to evaluate the suspected electromagnetic resonance between the dyes and the homeopathic potencies. And we can see it or measure it by spectrophotometry. So this is the principle of the method, and we tried to reproduce and go forward with it. And here it's the result of our first attempt to perform this method. We used ET33, this is the orange dye, and we could compare different potencies of antimonium crudum using the whole spectrum of visible light. And here you could see that in the top, in the peak of this spectrum, there was some differences between the potencies. And here it's the same thing but amplified, and it's easier to see. Here we can see the peak of water and dynamized water, the dye itself without any interference, and the three potencies of antimonium crudum, 6CH, 30, and 200 CH. When we saw it, of course, we were very happy. Remember that dynamized water and all the potencies were prepared using this kind of machine. It's a mechanical arm that simulates the human succussion according to the Hahnemannian method. And this is a standard machine used in every pharmacy, manipulation pharmacy in Brazil. So, after we tried to verify the effect using another dye, the methylene violet, here, methylene violet. And with the methylene violet, only 200 CH was able to change the peak of absorbance using this dye. But we decided to do another thing, that was to submit a sample of 200 CH to a centrifugation, 4,000 RPM during 1 hour. We decided to do it trying to separate the heaviest particles, the heaviest agglomerates, to the rest of the structures in the liquid, and see how important these structures were to determine this difference using the Cartwright method, but you couldn't see any difference at all. Up to yesterday, I thought it was enough to conclude that the differences using Cartwright method were independent of these huge particles. But since yesterday, from today, up to today, I think I changed my idea, because if the liquid is a dynamic process, maybe even after centrifugation and using only the supernatant, maybe new forms, new agglomerates like this can be formed after. So I think we have studied a little bit more about it before I have any conclusion. But anyway, it's an interesting result. So after this, we performed some potency-effect curves, and we got new data. And here, using again the ET33, because it was a very sensitive dye, to antimonium chrome. And here we could see in a wide range of potencies, bands of potencies between 24 and 49 CH, in which we could see some variation in relation to the control, to the succussed water, using Cartwright's method. But when you use the methylene violet, only higher potencies presented some significant difference in relation to the control, mainly 120 CH. That means that according to the potency, we can have different dyes that are able to reveal their activity or not. There is some kind of specificity here, and we have to study it a little bit more, but it's already something interesting to observe. And to go forward, we decided to evaluate the same potencies, but after an electric interference. Using the same device we used to measure the conductivity, we induced 10 pulses of 30 microamperes, being 3 seconds each, into the liquid, and then we performed the Cartwright method. And after this interference, we couldn't see any effect at all. So, differences disappeared after the interference of the electric flow. In another study, we tried to use biological samples and perform the same method. Not the medicine itself, but biological samples. And which kind of biological samples used? Used the same supernatant that Fabiana has stocked in the freezer from the treated cells. So here we can see a plate of cell culture with macrophages and leishmania treated with different potencies of antimonium crudum. But after 72 hours, we had to change the medium, because otherwise the cells would die. Because there is a time where ideal time to make an ideal nutrition of the cells. And after 72 hours, we had to change the medium to a new medium, RPMI, but without a new treatment. So the cells were treated just once in the beginning of the experiment, and here we just changed the medium to a new one. And 24 hours after, so 96 hours after the first treatment, we harvested this supernatant, and they are stocked in a freezer at minus 10 degrees Celsius during 3 years. They were there. And then we decided to use this supernatant to be analyzed according to the Cartwright method. We prepared this supernatant as if they were real medicines. So they were diluted in 1 to 100, in this proportion, into pure water, succussed in the machine, and then analyzed according to the Cartwright method, using methylene violet as a dye. And to our surprise, the signal was there in 200 CH, 30 CH, but also in 6 CH, and in a very high degree of statistical significance. These results make us to think that maybe after the contact with a biological structure, the signal could be amplified anyway. And this was surprising and very interesting result too. And this result was inspiration to us to try another experiment in another completely different situation. It's a veterinary report with the help of three colleagues of mine, veterinarians too, as me, Mônica Souza, Cideli Coelho, and Sônia Vasconcelos. This report is a very recent situation we had in Brazil. In the end of the last year and the beginning of this year, we had a huge yellow fever epidemic. This is very important because yellow fever is an endemic disease, infectious disease, that is restricted to the Amazonian area, to the north of Brazil. But this year we could see many cases of yellow fever in the south, through São Paulo, Minas Gerais, Rio Grande do Sul. These states didn't have this kind of disease before, but this year we could see many cases. But for human beings, it's easy because we have very efficient vaccines. People were vaccinated to the yellow fever. We had some deaths, of course, but not so much. And to humans, it was okay. The trouble was to monkeys. They were completely susceptible because there was no vaccine to them, and mainly this kind of monkey, the bugio monkey, their main habitat is near São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and Minas Gerais, the Atlantic forest, and we had lots of death of this kind of this species of monkeys during this epidemic. Then the veterinarians responsible to protected areas and zoos where this kind of monkeys lived, they were despaired because there was nothing to do. And when there is nothing to do, what the veterinarians can do? Call the homeopaths. Maybe in homeopathy we can have something to help. So they called Cideli, Mônica, Sônia, and Ana Regina, another colleague, three clinicians, veterinary clinicians. In Brazil, homeopathy is an official specialization inside the veterinary profession and also inside the medical profession. So these specialists were called, and they decided to use phosphorus 30CH according to this classical similia principle, according to the concept of genius epidemicus. It's a Hahnemannian concept. And we had a trouble because to give this medicine to monkeys that live in zoos, it's okay, it's easy, you put on the water and it's okay. But to treat wild animals in protected areas and closed areas, because it's, at this time it was forbidden to enter into this area because of health problems, and very difficult to have access to these wild monkeys. So Mônica Souza had a great idea, because she uses this kind of method already in farms. she decided to to pour the medicine into water sources and the reservoirs and see what happened. So the trouble is how far the medicine information can go. If you put some medicine in the water source, a natural water source, how we can be sure that this information you arrive to a monkey after 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers from there? So we decided to perform experimentation using natural waters with the help with Sonia Vasconcelos, who lives here in this area. It's a condominium with a preservationist approach in the city of Ibiúna, about 100 kilometers from São Paulo. And she and Sideli harvested some samples of water before and after pouring the medicine inside the source. Here we can see the source that received the treatment, a fjord near to the source, and a parallel lake that's not linked to the same water flow, but in a parallel position, in the same property. And all around this lake, we can see the Atlantic forest, the protected area where some monkeys used to live there. And studying the medicine itself, the phosphorus 30CH, and these measurements were done by 2 other students, Larissa and Ana Carla. We could see that the signal was very clear here in phosphorus 30CH using methylene violet dyes. With the other 2 dyes, we couldn't see any effect, so the methylene violet was the ideal model to this kind of study. And then we used the same dye to study the water. And here we can see the results. The point 1 is the source, point 2 the fjord, point 5 the parallel lake. Pre means before, pause means after. Before and after, before and after, before and after. You can see here the signal that could be identified using these methods in all the samples. In all the samples. It was amazing because you could see that after 10 minutes. It's before the pouring the medicine, and after 10 minutes, in different points, we could see the signal very clear using the Cartwright method. And the next question was, what about the monkeys? Because, okay, the signal was there, good, and the monkeys? And I called Sideli to give me some feedback about the monkeys before coming here. And she informed me with all this data. And it's a timeline. Here we can see the previous situation. They had 32 monkeys living in this area, organized in 3 families. And between December 2017 and February 2018, there was the death of all of them because of yellow fever. At this time, in February, they tried to use a kind of isotherapy made from the yellow fever vaccine. They treat the source once, and they tried to collect samples during 1 week. We are still processing and analyzing these samples, so maybe next year we can have some results about. But there is no change in the monkeys' population after this treatment. And in May of this year, they used the phosphorus 30CH in the same manner once in the source, and the water was harvested during 1 week in different times. We started to do our analysis. We have this result involving before and 10 minutes after, but we still have another samples from other times and other locations of the property, but we're still working on these results. Anyway, in September of 2018, of this year, new monkeys appeared in this area, and last week she sent me this photo in which they could see mama monkey with a little baby on her back. It means that reproduction begins, and when wild animals are in reproduction, it means that they are nice, they are okay. So we had a happy end. But it's important to mention that this is not enough to prove that homeopathy had some effect on the monkeys. To do it, Sideli and Sonia are organizing a kind of epidemiological inquiry in this area and many other areas in São Paulo state, areas that were treated with homeopathy and areas that was not treated with homeopathy. And after our comparisons and our data analysis, maybe we can find some final conclusion about this. But anyway, it's an interesting story to tell you and to show how useful this method can be, as in basic research, as in applied situation, involving farms, animals, involving environment, health, and etc. So, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. And I think one question.
Thank you very much for your presentation and your field trials. I'm particularly struck by your field trial. And I would like to make suggestions. Maybe you can have to do this because you have the environmental setups and the biomes up there in Brazil. This regards marine ecosystems, particularly the massive die-off that we witness with coral reefs. And in particular, marine biologists are trying to use genetically modifying tools in order to trim corals, in order to cope with changing environments. However, since these oligotrophic environments are ideal because they don't have very much nutrients contents in it, however, they have a lot of viruses and bacteria, special phagocytes. Mm-hmm. So I wonder whether this approach can be used in order to help these dying corals. To help these dying corals. Because Brazil has north of the Amazon Delta, there is a nice coral reef area stretching up all the way to Belize and the Caribbean. Yeah, the corals, okay. Yeah. So.
Okay. Water organisms, yes. Sea organisms.
Invertebrates, just corals. And the veterinarians should know how to deal with them.
I think so, but we have to try. We don't have any results involving sea organisms, or because it's another volume of water. But I am almost sure that we can have some results in this case. But we have to try. Okay. Cadê?
No. Question. Thank you. It's very interesting what you're doing, and they let you do it, which is amazing. Do you have any concerns, moreover, that homeopathy has not been as applied in the animal? It says that, I mean, it seems like now you have a veterinary who uses homeopathy as medicine, as any allopathic treatment in animals. But what would be your concern if you apply this, in this case, phosphorus 30, see in a wild ecosystem like the water reservoirs, what is the effect of that homeopathy on the other organisms that live in the water, for instance, or other plants or well, in this case, animals that are drinking from the same water, not just the monkeys?
Okay, thanks for your question, because it's a very important question, because this is the most interesting and important thing in homeopathy. Since only organisms that have similarity, symptomatic similarities with the remedy can improve their parameters. But if there is no similarity and no idiosyncrasy with the remedy, there is absolutely no effect. This is very, very specific. This is very known in classic homeopathy. It's very known since the Hahnemann's time, and we can see it in other experimental models, not here, but in other experimental models. You can see this kind of specificity. So it's absolutely harmless to the other beings, otherwise the sequence. So this is the main advantage of homeopathy when we treat a large amount of animals in a huge population without the necessity to approach one by one. That's sometimes it's impossible. That's good question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for two interesting reports, Professor Voikov. Also, I was in USA. I remember the report of Professor Kunovau. I have researched homeopathy with a lot of blind experiments with infrared spectroscopy near to the number of Avogadro results. And from the reports, I believe much more that biological systems give much more information. My question is, do you have information about the experiment in the range of infrared spectroscopy under the number of Avogadro? Thank you.
Yes, we saw something about, but at this time we were more interested in the Cartwright method because of its simplicity. That's I think the most important question regarding to this method. In relation to the other ones, that means that we have many methods to study physical-chemical properties of water and dynamized substances and different kinds of spectrometry. But in this kind, we can use a conventional spectrophotometer, and these dyes are very cheap, it's very affordable, and very practical to use in any situations, even in field studies. That's why we were so interested to reproduce and advance in using this method.
Okay, I think that the coffee break is for us, and thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you.